Hi, happy day. I'm Ashley. Thank you for coming to my space. Thank you for giving me your time and attention. Thank you for giving me a place to, as A Course in Miracles says, that you actually don't have anything until you give it away. And so for me, I've been studying spiritual concepts for what feels like at least 17 years, because that's how long I've been behind the chair, where I feel like you could actually call me more of a human researcher or a therapist. And so in this space, I want to talk about things that we pretend are not like part of our human experience, and it's sex, money, and death. These things quickly turn the mirror on you and give you a quicker and more clear view of what your behaviors look like in your personal life and how you are facing things that are just genuinely, objectively part of your human experience, and everyone's going through it. And so since everyone's going through it, it's like everything else that we're not talking about it because it's not there. So sex is probably my favorite one to talk about because it is so confronting. And in my family, I'm constantly like, that's inappropriate. That's inappropriate. Like everyone thinks I'm inappropriate. I'm totally leaning into it now. The idea that through even like Christianity and Buddhism, and I think every religion, and then even like yoga, like sex is life force, life giving. Like we know biologically, scientifically that sex creates a baby, which I guess like ideally, like technically we're in an age where things are starting to change, but let's just say for the sake of like OG style, babies and life was brought into this world by sex. And you were given a body, like you just arrived to this lifetime with this body. And for women, which this is for anybody and everybody, but I'm a woman, and so I have to speak to my own experience. And so we were given a clit, and the only purpose of it was pleasure. That blows my mind that we are out here in any way, shape, or form shaming or not discussing the natural pleasures of our life. Then that kind of leads me into why I think, sex is a sort of taboo in a way, because if let's just say shame is a very rampant epidemic. We are shameful about everything. And I think that that's probably where sex started to be more in the shadows, is like you are ashamed of this thing, which you already have, which is wild to me that we would be ashamed of something that we already have. So if you think about shame, it doesn't necessarily go with pleasure. I think because we find pleasure with something that others have told us is wrong or inappropriate or whatever it may be, we have a hard time allowing pleasure in our life. I talked to some of my girlfriends and they all have like different names for it because of where they came from or grew up, and whatever different guilt they have, whether it be religion or their family or trying not to be like somebody in the family is a big one too. So all of these things are blocking our pleasure. And so the same way that I think that money and death are a thread that strings through how to look at ourselves and just really like know what we have going on in that particular place. Like imagine that we are walking through life as we are, and like let's just say we're a woman who wants to have a baby, but like we don't have a really easy time talking about sex and like the act that it takes to get a baby. Like that's not to hurt anybody's feelings, but just put it in perspective that something that you want more than anything is a challenge for you to discuss about love and feelings and pleasure. And like, why would it be such a bad thing to bring a baby into this world under pleasure and like talk about sex? And so then it's also kind of like underneath a layer of that is like you're maybe ashamed of your body, that your body does something that maybe you don't understand actually, right? And how interesting that really the root of a lot of shame is just not understanding. And so everything that I'm trying to talk about is trying to spark or tickle your curiosity and just get you to ask questions, because there's nothing wrong with any of these things objectively. It's what we put on them that makes them wrong or shameful. So everything is a thought experiment. Everything is like, take this information, try it on, verify it for yourself. Does it feel true? Does it feel true that like your body was born with whatever genitalia and whatever cluster of nerve endings that give you a sense of pleasure. Since you were a kid, you didn't know what you were doing, but it felt good. So this idea that we keep continuing on to add shame to it it's not my jam. So I'm going to just parlay over to something else. That one of the things that I think is something like taking it back. Go fuck yourself is my new favorite thing. Not only because like it's so confronting. Like when you're like, go fuck yourself, I'll be like, okay, fine. I'm going to go in my room. I'm going to grab my favorite masturbating tool. And I'm going to fuck myself. Because that's not that bad. Like if somebody was like, go do some hard labor work that you don't want to do, fine. But if someone says go fuck yourself and go have an orgasm and like get your shit together, my favorite thing to call it is an attitude adjustment. It is, I'm going to botch this scientifically, but maybe one day I'll get better at it. But our cervix opening and our larynx, like our throat, our voice box, whatever, they're connected. And when you're first created, they're together and then they separate. And so the same way that you can create and you feel expressive by talking is the same way that you can release when you're having an orgasm. And like bringing the orgasm into something else, like I love yoga philosophy. I'm a yoga teacher as well. And I love that when you really get into the yoga philosophy, it's yoga is breath. And in your life, you're given a lifespan of breaths, not age or years. And so when you breathe, the power that it gives you is literally also life force. So you're having an orgasm or a connection with somebody or connection by yourself, which is hugely something I think I'll talk about more than anything. Is like, you don't need a partner for any of this. And any of this work, you don't necessarily need anybody else either. Like one of my favorite teachers says that you can, forgive people without like having to tell them that you forgave them. So you can fuck yourself without anybody else being around and get the benefits of it is literally almost like a frequency of a tuning, if you want to like play in the spiritual world, and it's true, right? But like we're frequencies and like all of this around us is energetic, and like you're just sometimes, and in my metaphysical way and physical of thinking about it is like we get really dense. We like just hold on to shit. We get really serious and like I'm guilty and I'm shameful and I'm not worthy of anything, so I definitely can't have any pleasure, because you know damn well that if you released in a pleasurable way, not in like a mechanical way, because that's something else to talk about too, because sometimes sex can be really mechanical with porn and just like how we use it. And for me, I will say, as an example, I think that a healthy way to do it, and this could be wrong, but for me, I'm a very afternoon delight person. I'm not much into porn. Actually, really not into porn at all. And I definitely think that it is an afternoon attitude adjustment. I absolutely fucked myself before I got anywhere near being as vulnerable to share about topics like sex, death, and money, and to talk about them from a first-person perspective, and to say that my intentions are to find truth in it, and to give you an opportunity to question what it feels like for you. Is this true? Or do you feel like you can find yourself through pleasure? How about that? How about there's absolutely like therapy and a whole bunch of like shadow work. And for the record, all of these things have shadow work. So that's not that you can get around the shadow work of things, because it's all of these things also have like other things that are not shadowy. So it's really opportunity here to, let me just turn that off. An opportunity to go about learning about yourself, not through the shadow, but through pleasure. Like imagine if you got to fuck yourself and you have more of an experience of like, I've just been carrying around so much shame and like guilt and I don't love my body. And then you have an experience just with yourself and you're like, wow, I am like, there's something there. You have to experience a lot of concepts in order to grasp the value of them. And I'm not here to convince anybody. Like I will tell you and I will share with you, but like it's up to you to go get the experience, friend, because it's there. And so when you have the experience and you can see the benefits of it, then you can put it into play and just notice that even if you have an adversity to sex and you're just like, no, it's inappropriate. Do you have an adversity to pleasure? Possibly. What does your pleasures look like? So thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure to share and such a pleasure to have you in my space. Thank you for letting me tell my truth and share my voice.